Okay, we are back, and I want to push us a little bit further beyond the kind of drawings that we all see and love about architecture. These are like lovely, lovely, lovely drawings, right? And we want to be able to emulate them, we want to be able to copy them. But also, I sort of want to give you a bit of a push outwards in terms of the fact that you have this computer, right? And this computer can do things in ways that you don't work. So everything that you see here, there's not really any reason why there's a big difference between doing it in a computer or doing it on a drawing board. Like literally, there is a parallel between the layer that you use to put some line work on in Rhino and the pen that you pick up in year one, right? The way I think about it is like you switch to a different layer or you switch to a different pen. They're kind of the same thing, yeah? And you draw a straight line in Rhino by clicking one point and clicking one point. You draw a straight line by getting your pen and your your horizontal ruler and your protractor or whatever, and then you draw a line with a ruler. It's kind of like basically you're using the computer as basically a repetitive replacement for the pen and the drawing board and the paper and the ruler, right? And so what you see when you look at architectural drawings is often drawings that could have been done with a computer, could have been done with a pen and paper. They're kind of all the same. What I want to do is kind of introduce you to the idea that computers kind of force you into, or not force, that they can invite you into a different way of thinking about how you draw with a computer. This I really I find very sort of evocative as an architectural pitch. It's an architectural drawing. That's what it is. It's in the Museum of Modern Art. I think it's in San Francisco. It's Daniel Liebeskind. It's called Micromegas. And what you'll be able to see here is exactly the same architectural language that we were playing with that drawing of the trailer, of the caravan. We've got dashed lines, we've got thin lines, we've got thick lines. This, however, is done using rulers and pens. So it looks digital, but it is analog. So there's something about this drawing that's kind of tapping into the crazy complexity of what digital architecture can make, but it's done using a ruler and some pens. That's literally how it's made. It's on paper. You can hold it in your hand. That's how it was drawn. This is some of my work inspired by that. I then said, well, the thing about this drawing is that, yes, it's architectural, but what architecture is it actually representing? It's much more speculative than that. It's much more playful. It's much more asking questions about what architectural drawing is, rather than just using architectural drawing unquestioningly to represent some object. And so what I did was I said, okay, what are the elements of architectural drawing that are interesting? Well, things like line weights and line styles and annotations and colors, different grades of gray. And so this is literally, I'll zoom in here. This is produced drawing lines by a computer. And you can see actually the more you zoom in, the more detail there is kind of hiding away. And to do this by hand would have taken a very, very, very long time. It's possible, but it would have taken a very long time. And so on the left, what you have is some code that I wrote that basically says, draw some lines, but then let's go into more detail about exactly how you're going to draw those lines. In fact, there are some rules that basically say start drawing a line from a particular point and then go and draw that line and then keep going until some random point is reached. But each time you keep going, make sure your line gets thicker and thicker and thicker in terms of its line weight. So it's kind of like we're playing with time and line weights all at the same time. And then there's all sorts of other things about adding in other little glyphs and other shapes. But computers can draw lines. Now is it really architecture? Who knows? But it was quite evocative as a sort of starting point, right? And actually, this was a master's course. This was about exploring what architectural drawing could be. I don't want to dwell too much on it, but I want to just put into your mind the idea that you can question what an architectural drawing is. You're allowed to first understand the rules and then start to break the rules. Drawing is also about working out how you're going to set up your building. So you may have seen processes like this. This is a process for a project that I was involved in a number of years ago now. But what happens is the first drawing at the top on the left is simply a list of spaces that are needed, and then color coding by maybe questions of like adjacency. Maybe there's certain groups of rooms that need to be close to one another, like you need the kitchen near the dining room because you're going to bring out the food and then eat it. Or you need, I think this is a school, so maybe you might want the hall next to the dining area. Or maybe you want them to be the same space that's kind of overlapped. And you need a store cupboard near the science classroom because you need to store the lab equipment. So laying out the spaces that you need and then going through a process of like maybe color coding them, and then allowing the process of sketching over the top of those diagrams can actually turn into a plan. I mean, it might not be the plan, but it's a starting point. During COVID, I was stuck at home and I had no access to a big plotter. I had no Marcello's print room. There was no ability for me to print any larger than A4. I had an A4 printer at home, that was it. And we couldn't go anywhere because we were locked inside. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up producing a whole different way of drawing that I would never have done if it wasn't for the pandemic. What you're looking at on the left is actually a render. So it's got shading, it's got materials, and then it's rendered onto a screen. But then I took my computer screen like this, and then I put it flat, and then put a piece of tracing paper over the top of it, and then drew over the tracing paper. So what you've ended up with is basically like a hybrid drawing where you've got real pen and real tracing paper, but underneath it, in this kind of ghostly image, is a render. And usually you do it the other way around. Usually you start with a sketch and then you work towards a render and then you present your super clean, neat render at the end. But who tells you have to do that? In fact, hybrid drawings are generally one of the most powerful tools that you have, whether it's collage or sketch or watercolor or photography. There are tons and tons of layers that you can put up against one another to basically turn something that's a single conversation into something that has multiple layers of meaning to it. This ended up being a final image that was part of my master's course. And you can see literally it sort of fades on the left. That is like a super digital render of some really complex geometry. And all the way down to down here, this is like super sketchy hand drawing. But you can put these things together. The line work that you create could be any number of different places, could come from any number of different places. I'm just going to turn my Teams off because clearly someone's having a crisis and needs to get in touch with me, and I can get back to them soon. Here we are. Here's basically a sort of a sketch process of, I'm not even sure what this is, but some kind of large-scale tower development. Some ideas about hugely condensed co-living, massive scale. But drawings can also move. It's possible to, I'm just going to turn this sort of hideous screeching noise off. It's possible to have drawings that are actually animated. Everything that you see on the left was lines from Rhino. And then actually, I think I ended up taking them into something like 3ds Max or maybe Grasshopper, and literally just saying, well, I want to draw that line from there to there. I want it to expand out, and I want to see the drawing itself. On the right-hand side is much more of a kind of exploration of things like, I think this is about turbulent flow around a particular piece of geometry. But drawings can move. There's no rule that says that drawings have to be completely static and look like every other architectural drawing that you've ever seen. And so I want to very, very quickly talk through this particular case study. Now, this is much more traditional. Out of the end of it, you will see something on the right-hand side that looks very much like a CAD plan. It looks like a ground floor drawing of a particular project. But if I head on over to here, hopefully it's loaded. Here we go. So what we have here is a project. I think I've shown you this project before. And the whole point of the project was that this particular structure kind of melded in with the landscape. So it carried on the flow of water along the project. And what you'll notice is that there's obviously quite a bit of complexity to the structure here. It's kind of this like really quite messy truss structure that kind of holds everything up. But effectively, if I head over to a ghosted view, what we've basically got is a whole load of boxes, and just those boxes, each one of those is a hotel room. And what I've decided to do is I haven't modeled it in any great detail. So this is the opposite of that caravan approach. The caravan approach says, I'm going to model every tiny bolt and screw, and then I'm going to lay it out, and then I'm going to do a make 2D, and then my drawing is going to be perfect in one go. Yeah? And the way we've done that is we've basically front-loaded the work into the modeling. So we spent more time modeling and less time at the end turning that into a drawing. This is the opposite. And what I want to say to you is that it's possible to draw the line of where you stop modeling and start drawing basically wherever you like. Put your hand up if you much prefer to draw in 2 dimensions than model in 3 dimensions. So some people are like much more confident either with a pen and a ruler or with a sketchbook or on the digital. You're just happier in kind of like CAD kind of world. Yeah, a few people. Put your hand up if you're much happier modeling things exactly in 3D and then just at the end just going click a button and then I just want my drawings out, please. There's a few people there. Right. So the thing that I showed you with the caravan, if you love modeling things right and you can do it cleanly and you can do it quickly, because the danger is that actually can take a very long time, then spend more time getting your modeling right, and then your drawings are kind of going to come out with this kind of beautiful quality to them. If, on the other hand, like me, in this project, I literally cannot be bothered to put the model in the detail of every single hotel room's door or anything like that. What I did was I took this model and I said, right, that's as much as I'm going to do. I'm done modeling now. And now I need to create a ground floor plan for this hotel. And you'll see down here, there's these floor plates, and I haven't even modeled the walls. Literally, all I've done is I've just put a slab of floor plate into the area, and I've modeled the structure because I know where that's going to go. But I kind of know that there's going to be some walls there, but I haven't finished it yet. I've just got sort of the outline of something. And what I ended up doing was this. So I came to, let's go all the way up to here. I came to Rhino, and I went to my plan view, and I cut a hole. I used a clipping plane to cut the ground floor plan. So just put my clipping plane where it needed to go, and I went, send that to a PDF, please. And then that's what comes out. And it doesn't look very good. Like there's not much there. You think, well, that's not really a great plan, right? And then everything that you see that happens next is within the 2D world. So I did my make 2D from this, and I put it into a flat 2D file, and then I just kept on working it in lines and hatches and line weights. And so let's go down here. So I added in the flow lines from the hill. I know where they're going to go. I know that the hill kind of gets cut. So I've got a cut line that I've got to work out. And everything to the left of that is basically going to be invisible to me because I'm kind of cutting through the hill. Because you see that hill, it's like on there like that. And then I can zoom in here. Basically, this is kind of where I get to. I know that there's an escalator that comes up here. And I know that there's maybe some rooms in there. And I don't exactly know. Maybe this is like a fire escape and some lifts. And this is like the lobby area. Maybe this is the reception desk. So you come in here, you get your room key, you take your bags to the lift, and you go up to your rooms in the hotel. Let's keep going down. Oh, here we go. Adding back in those flow lines. I'm working in, and basically every single one of these iterations is all in the 2D world. So it doesn't exist in 3D. I'm drawing it in 2 dimensions, and I'm doing it after I've cut it. So I'm working entirely in CAD. And as I go, I'm adding in ideas about exactly how this hotel might work. And in fact, what I'm doing is I'm designing the hotel. I hadn't designed it in 3D. I didn't quite know how it was going to work, but I took a cut of it, I stopped modeling, and then I came over and I did everything else in 2D lines. And at one point, obviously, what I'm going to realize is that this scale is wrong. And the reason I know that scale is wrong is because my building is this tiny, tiny little blip. And there's this huge amount of landscape around. And it just doesn't work. So what I'm going to need to do is when I've started dealing with all of this kind of detail, I'm going to zoom in and actually set up my sheet correctly so I can really tell what's going on. And I decided that great big sort of grey nonsense on the left-hand side was just taking up far too much of the page. So now I'm zoomed in, and all of these lines that have come from my Make 2D, I can now start to actually put in the details of this particular sort of mesh thing or whatever it is. I know that I can see the detail of the escalators. I can see the escalators going up here. I've changed around some of these rooms. I didn't need to do that in 3D. I could just do it with lines and line weights. I've got pools that are filling with water, and that's an important part of the design. It wasn't modeled in 3D, but I could put it in CAD. And I've added a scale bar and a north arrow because you absolutely need a scale bar and a north arrow. And I wonder if I can do this. Yeah, here we go. So you can see a little bit better. You can see the thick lines are where the walls are. I've filled them in with just a solid black hatch. And the thin lines for everything else, I can see there's this reservoir where the water gets harvested. This is the lobby level public space. I've got some annotation on there. So I've got labels, text. That didn't exist in 3D. I've added that in 2D. And keep going. I've added some people. And then basically, once I get to this point, I say, okay, this is my ground floor plan. I'm done. But then I can do exactly the same thing by cutting through the first floor and then doing the same process. And the second floor and then doing the same process. And in fact, actually, everything from the second floor upwards is basically the same. So I only have to do 3 plans. But do you see, when it comes to drawing, basically you've got the choice as to whether you do loads of modeling and then make 2D and then your drawing basically comes out pretty much done, or whether you just use a sort of indication of the 3D model and then you fill in loads of detail in 2D later. Any questions on that? Are you fairly happy about which of those processes that you'd usually naturally go towards? Yeah? And if you see someone stuck in one of those processes and they really should be doing the other one, help each other out. Say, hang on, wouldn't it be quicker if you just did a quick model of that massing and then did a Make 2D and used that as the basis for your drawing? Or you might find yourself doing the other thing, nudging people and saying, you've been modeling that for 3 hours and you haven't got anywhere. Maybe just call it a day and do it in 2D because it's way quicker. Cool. back to here. That's basically what I wanted to show you. We've got 5 minutes for questions on anything to do with getting drawings out, getting out of the digital, or any of the other tasks that are still ongoing. So any questions as you go? I think there was someone who did have a question. Have you asked all your questions? Okay, cool. Do you have an idea about where you might go next? How you could use this in your projects? Yeah, starting to think maybe. If there's one other thing that's really helpful to understand, this project, I had an idea in my head of what I wanted the final image to look like before I started modeling it. And actually, the most important bit that often gets glossed over is the process that actually got me to being able to model this in the digital was an entirely analog one, which is, again, the same reason why we say bring a pen to the lectures, because a pen will get your brain going, get you understanding. And these sketches are nothing special. They're basically just me saying, can I work out how that bed folded down? And it's me thinking through where I wanted to get to. The modeling would not have been possible without that sketching first. So don't think you're going to go into the digital and then your image is just going to appear in front of your eyes. You have to have a plan before you get there. And a lot of that plan involves deciding what you're not going to show as well. So being okay to do this. Check out this guy here. This is my model of the caravan. I spent a long time modeling this guy here and this door and this window. Do you actually see any of that face on my final image? No, because it's been dragged all the way out over here, been dragged all the way out. And basically, I don't show it. I've had to sacrifice it to the more important gods of the image has to look right. So even though I've done the work, I've just never shown anyone in the final image. And that can be quite painful sometimes, because effectively you're kind of hacking away at your own work in order to get an image out. But you have to have an idea of what that image is going to be before you start. And it's really helpful to sketch it out first, either with a design tutor or with a friend or on your own. Helpful? Cool. All right. Well, in that case, next week is our final lecture together before Christmas. So we're going to look at, in a little bit more detail, how we don't just get drawings out, but how we can build physical things, especially getting things ready for things like 3D printing, going to the workshop, CNC, laser cut, all of those kinds of things. So enjoy your week, happy drawing, and see you next week.